All right, guys. Well, congratulations on knocking out your second day of class. Um, so let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is before you watch this video, why don't you make sure that you've done the reading for tonight? This video probably won't make a lot of sense if you haven't read the chapter yet. So um, if you haven't done that, why don't you take a minute and read the PDF I posted and then come back to this. All right, have you done it? Good stuff. So let me walk you through what I want. So what I say here is find an online image or video that makes use of line and examine what the lines are like in the image. Look also for what effect the lines create. Write down your analysis in a 300-word or more response. Make sure to ground your analysis directly in what McLeod is saying. Cite or refer to passages from the text directly for support. And then be prepared to present what you have found to a small group and or the whole class. So what do I mean by that? What I want you to do is find something online. It can be a static image, just a regular picture, advertisement, website, you name it, or a video. It doesn't have to be from YouTube, although of course, like, that's probably the best place to look for videos. Where you notice that the use of line is prominent. It doesn't have to be a comic image or a drawn image, although those are good places to look because of course comics and drawn images focus pretty heavily on using line. But really anything you notice where they are focusing on line. So sometimes handwritten documents or documents online, you'll notice like sometimes people really focus on how the type is done. That could also work in theory. And I want you to look at how the lines are drawn and kind of refer back to what McLeod is saying about line to talk about how the lines are drawn. What do you think the lines express? What do you notice about, you know, say the thickness, the consistency, etc. about the lines? How does the way that the lines are drawn represent what the artist is trying to express? McLeod provides some great examples of this on pages 124, 125, and 126 in our reading, if you want to see him walk through a few. I will also walk us through a few using slightly different examples right now. So what I'm going to introduce first is a video by a band called Gorillaz. They've been around for a bit. They were a new band when I was an undergrad. And the video I want us to look at is called Clint Eastwood. It was their first big video, and it's kind of what put them on the map, although the lead singer for that band is a guy named Damon Albarn, who was already famous for another band called Blur. And I think Gorillaz is still kicking. I haven't been keeping up with them. But anyways, I will provide a link to that video right now. Why don't you take a second and watch that video and then come back to my video and I will break down what I want you to notice. Okay, so let's talk about the video. Couple things. While there are, of course, like curved lines, I think one of the most noticeable things about that video is the predominance of straight lines and like sharp angles. Sometimes sharp even to the point where they're almost spikes. You'll notice, for example, the lead singer and even the bass player too, you know, their hair is spiky, their teeth our spiky elbows come off as almost like right angles or sharp angles. You'll notice kind of the cracks in the ground are very sharp and angular. The lightning, the rain falls at like a perfect slanted angle and is, you know, this series of kind of short, straight lines. You'll notice kind of these like overly large tombstones, which have like very long straight lines and very sharp right angles. And I think what's going on with that is these straight lines and these sharp angles, they create kind of like a stiffness or kind of this weird, maybe not tension, but it almost creates this weird sense of aggression, right? That they're definitely not soft. It's definitely not like, the drawings aren't like gentle. And I think that connects to the music, which is like, not aggressive, but it's not necessarily easy listening, right? The pace, the verbal pace is a little bit quicker. The lyrics, you know, they're not negative, I guess, or anything like that, but they're definitely not kind of like light and mellow. There's definitely like kind of a mild edge to them. And so I think that these sharp lines, these straight lines, kind of underscore that kind of pace of the music and tone of the music and kind of sharper or edgier kind of feeling that they want to convey with how they're singing and what they're saying. Next up is an artist called Karawa. I will link you to a YouTube video about him. However, you can also Google him and find images of his paintings. The video is like a nice little introduction to him, but there's definitely other stuff that you can use. So why don't you check that out and then come back. All right. So let's talk about him. So he's a painter that's like always kind of fascinated me, and we'll probably return to him maybe for no other reason than I'm kind of obsessed with him. I think one of the things that's very, very fascinating about him, the lines in his paintings, kind of unlike, say, the Gorillaz videos where there are sharp lines and curves, it really feels like the sharp lines and the angles kind of control the tone, versus with on Karawa, they seem pretty balanced. Like there seems like to be a really good balance between sharp straight lines and very gentle curves. And the feeling I get from his paintings is a sense of control, like perfect control. One fascinating thing about him, I don't think it's mentioned in the video, is that he made those paintings without a stencil. So he drew those lines and then he very carefully painted them. And I think you get that feeling, like just looking at the painting, you get this sense of patience and you get this sense of control and dedication and calmness. And I think you get that from kind of the very clean look of them, the very perfect look of them, the kind of mixture of both like very straight lines and very regular angles and then very, very gentle curves. And they give off this feeling of being very formal, being a little bit austere, being a little bit stark, you know, unemotional, very matter of fact. And that connects well to the content because it's a date, right? It's a number and it's a notation, right? And what kind of fascinates me about them is, of course, they represent the content very well because the date is, you know, just a series of letters and numbers. But of course, what's behind that is you know, an actual day. And of course, an actual day is messy and complicated, and you know, who knows what went on in that day. You know, of course, there's what we record for history, but of course, that leaves out so much. Um, and so it's one of the reasons these paintings fascinate me is they both represent well what they're showing, which is a date, you know, a series of numbers and letters. Um, but then they also contrast what they represent, which is a day in history. And a day in history is messy and chaotic and uncontrolled and, you know, anything but. Um, and so, yeah, he's another person. He fascinates me for many reasons, but I think if you look at his lines, they're very, very interesting. So try this on your own. You know, I want you to spend some time on the internet and find me something where an author or artist is using line to convey some message, to create some kind of effect. And let me know what that message is, what that effect is, and how those lines contribute to or build up to what that effect is. Good luck, and I'm interested to see what you come up with. Get me 300 words about it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow.